So I'm going to talk about what we went through to come up with our own custom expertise list. So originally at UIC, we had been using the fields of research terms that were assigned to individual researchers. So those terms show up as label schemes in the as researcher profile tags. So if someone's in the discovery module, they can use that as a facet to limit profiles to people with those specific label schemes. And so for anyone that's not aware of how the FORs are assigned, and I think I'm correct about this, is Elements will do a search in dimensions and pull out the authors at your institution. And then the journals where the authors are publishing are assigned FOR codes. And the FOR codes then are used to assign that researcher profile tag. And the institution decides how many times the FOR term needs to appear in order for it to be assigned as a label scheme. But we were noticing some limitations. So for example, not all journals are assigned FOR codes. Not all the journals that our authors were writing in then were having terms that could then be assigned to their profiles. The other issue was it wasn't very US-centric, so the fields of research is Australian, and it doesn't have terms like African American or Native American. And then there were other terms that faculty were looking for that weren't there. Some terms relevant to the LGBTQ community, gender and women's studies, those types of concepts weren't there. So it was limiting in terms of how we could use it that way, because it wasn't capturing some of the essence of what people might have had as their expertise. And then sometimes the terms were too broad. So essentially for all of our librarians who are publishing in library and information science, that concept was assigned to them, which the fact that they were in the library already sort of noted that expertise. We didn't need that as a filter. And the same with people, the faculty in nursing, having nursing assigned to them because the journal was assigned. Nursing wasn't really that helpful because there was more important terms like maternal childcare, those types of expertise. So we went to see what other options were available. We did consider using MESH. It had a lot more culturally appropriate terms in it. However, it wasn't necessarily that useful for those in the non-health sciences, although there certainly were some useful terms that were in there. Also, MESH, if people aren't familiar with it, and I think I have an image on the next slide here to show, MESH is a hierarchy, and so there's kind of a sweet spot in there where it's not too broad and not too narrow. If we were to let people to get too narrow, then there would be nobody that would line up to have that same expertise, because people would have picked such unique terms that also wouldn't have helped to narrow two groups of people. So we had, FRR was too broad, MESH was too broad, FRR. You know what? Some of them were too broad, some were too narrow. I can't remember which way now. We needed it to be just right. So we then decided to look for our own expertise list. So we did look at the FOR labels. And then we went and also searched in PubMed to bring up the publications there to see what were some of the most frequently assigned MESH terms. We also looked at the SIP, which is the Classification of Education Programs, which was particularly useful for outside of research, but for people that were more known for their expertise within what they taught. And then our university itself also had its own page of terms that it had come up with to highlight some profiles. So we kind of put that all together, and this is just an example of the SIP. We put that all together, and we looked at the terms in each of the lists, and this was very unscientific, that looked good, looked like possible terms that people would actually use, and that were types of research being done at UIC. And then we merged them all, and then went through the process to remove duplicates, also try to find synonyms to remove those, because you really only want the concept to show up once. And then we sent the list out to all of the colleges and asked them to look them over, to and ask them questions. Is the concept there, but would you prefer a different term? Is there terms that are missing? Or are there terms that you see listed there that no one in your discipline would use because it's outside of the scope of the type of research done at UIC? Not surprisingly, not a lot of people got back to us, but some people did. So we did end up with a list of 900 terms that we are trying to figure out different ways to get people to go back and add these, because originally we were using the FOR codes, and so we did a lot of training when only the FOR codes were there. So now we have to go back retrospectively and figure out ways to incentivize and that to get people to go back and select terms. We did do what we called an impact challenge to part of that process to encourage people to select our UIC expertise terms, certainly talking about it during training. And then we do have a message available in the spot where people go to pick their terms, that if there is a term missing, that to ask us if we can add them. So we've added probably about 10 terms now, maybe more. So it hasn't really been hard to maintain. So basically I'm just showing here where we added those for the discovery module so that they would show up. And then this is just, in addition to having the expertise terms, we did also customize our availability terms. We still left the fields of research up so that we have that, we might as well use it if people want to have it. And then we also did make it possible for people to add mesh terms, but those aren't visible terms. Those are just words that will help bring up search results. And so here now, if people go and they happen, for example, natural language processing, that's our UIC custom term, and it will bring up those profiles. And that's it. Any questions? Yeah.
Are you sharing your term list?
Yeah, so are you sharing the slides?
Yes, we will show the slides.
So you can't tell, but if you click that 900 plus terms, that's an active link that goes to our list. So you're free to download it and modify it yourself. Yes.
So we will share the slides. We'll also, with your consent, put a copy in the community repository so
No
that
problem.
they're available for people following on from the event too.
Sure, no problem. Yeah. So the way this works is that you can only select a term that's in the system. So there isn't any help if people put in NLP. Hopefully they'll just figure out that they need to write natural language processing.
Okay.
And select a term.
Somebody said that this was a huge undertaking, and I'm just curious, what was the effort involved in creating this? Like, how long did it
Did you
take?
want to respond first to
Just
that?
one more on the question before. So there is stemming available for looking up label values as some of the changes we made last year. So if they put in comp, then they could get computer computing suggestions appearing as the search result.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't really cope is acronyms.
Perfect. So, yeah, what was your question? I mean, the hardest part was really going through and like looking through mesh and kind of, there was really no scientific way to do it, to just pick what looked like something people would use because we had some familiarity with the expertise. So, I don't know. I mean, I would say it probably was a good 10 to 20 hours for some of those lists to go through to kind of identify what look like reliable terms. And then it was also a lot more complicated to look for synonyms. I mean, looking for similar terms wasn't that hard because you can just sort. I didn't use any really scientific method to try and find. So just, it was more eyeballing. So I think it was, I mean, it wasn't impossible. Obviously, we did it. And, you know, the concern is what happens if, you know, as more and more terms come up, because as those new terms come up, you know, for the people that have already selected them, that becomes sort of a little bit more of an issue. Or if somebody says, oh, we really don't think that this is the way this concept should be described, you know, that's a little bit easier to fix later because we can at least see who all has assigned the older term. But